Hi.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for waiting. My little Cassie got here yesterday, and I had to rearrange everything. But I'm glad she's here.
Aw.
Yeah.
Happy bum.
How are you doing, Debbie? How are you?
Great. Yeah. I celebrated my 10K last night, so that was fun. Yay!
Yay! That's awesome.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So it's
Fabulous.
fun.
Isn't it amazing and such a blessing that there's thousands of us that are on the same wavelength?
Yes, that's the main thing. Like I'm this community is just so amazing, and that
Yes.
that we all found each other and hanging out, and there's thousands of us.
Thousands.
Thousands. We're changing the world.
and everywhere, like all the corners of the earth.
Yeah.
And when I say we, I mean all the thousands of us together are changing the world together. So that's so wonderful.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's why we're here tonight.
Yes.
And how are you, Andrea?
I'm good, thank you. Would you believe on October 2nd there's a heat wave up here? I'm not kidding. And it's also, I want to say, in Canada, it is Truth and Reconciliation Day. It's a a federal holiday, I think. And that is to have everyone take a time out and think what has happened to our First Nations people and the children in the schools. And we all know what happened in the past. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Talk about changing
That's big. I know you got goosebumps when you said that. Talk about change. Yeah.
I mean, just because just taking that time out as a nation to reflect and bring light, and that's called global changing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Holy cow. Beautiful.
That would be great to replace our Thanksgiving with.
Yes.
Reconciliation Day, right?
Yes.
Put a different spin on being thankful, right?
Yeah.
Let's petition that.
Thankful for things that have changed.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. I love that. So welcome, everybody. And today we are this is Women Empowering Women Ladies Night, and we talk about women past and present. We bring them forward, bring their stories forward, and we trade off each week. So it's on each of our channels each week, and then we have been doing either a person or an event. And so I chose actually an event, an event and kind of a person as well. We'll see if she wants to come in. I'll tell you who I'm talking about in a second, but I thought this was very interesting because we always think of that when there's a women's movement that the problem is men. But in this story and talking about this page in history, that sometimes it can be convincing other women to have the courage to make things change. They also can be afraid of change and get set in their ways and be afraid of what comes next. So we're going to be talking about an event that was called the 1977 National Women's Conference. And it was supposed to be this amazing event. But let me tell you, can you guys still see me?
Yep.
And still see everything? Okay, good. Because I just changed to the page so I can read. But so let me read this to you guys and see what you guys think. It was the early 1970s, and the women's movement was on a roll. The 92nd Congress, in session from 1971 to 1972, passed more women's rights bills than all the previous legislation sessions combined, including the Title IX section of the Education Amendments, which prohibited sex discrimination in all aspects of education programs and receiving of federal support. In 1972, the Supreme Court case Eisenstadt versus Baird gave unmarried women legal access to birth control. If you can imagine, that was only 1972. That was a thing. And in 1973, Roe v. Wade, of course, made abortion legal across the country. And even the avowedly anti-feminist President Nixon supported a 1972 Republican Party platform that included feminist goals, including federal child care programs. So grassroots feminism had gained tons of steam during this time, and women across the country gathered to form rape crisis centers and shelters for victims of domestic abuse. If you wondered when those kinds of things started, this was the time. They produced the seminal book, Our Bodies, Ourselves, and started businesses aimed at defeating sexism in the media. And the capstone to the movement was supposed to be the Equal Rights Amendment, which aimed to give men and women equality in all aspects of life. It seemed likely to meet with the speedy success after passing both the House and the Senate with overwhelming support in 1972. But to be ratified, it would need 3/4 of the state legislatures to become law. But the bipartisan support was short-lived. In 1972, conservative leader Phyllis Schlafly, you can see her picture there, launched a movement whose goals protecting women's place as homemakers, fighting against abortion, and limiting government welfare and social support have come to define the modern debate over women's rights and the role of government enforcing them. So this is when all of that stuff started. The Schlafly campaigns, she campaigned hard and successfully to kill the ERA movement, and her vocal supporters succeeded in weakening the movement by making the issues into partisan issues. Mm. The difference between these two groups, feminists and conservatives, came to a head in 1977 in Houston, where you see that picture with all of the women that went out there to march, inspired by a well-received United Nations-sponsored event from 2 years prior. President Gerald Ford had established a national committee to investigate women's issues, and Congress later voted to provide $5 million to fund the organization of regional conferences and a national gathering as the conclusion. The result of these efforts was the National Women's Conference in 1977.
Well, you can't see this, Kim, but she's extremely well loved by our family here.
Is she?
No,
well, she's amazing.
I am joking, but
I know. Believe me, after I read this, I'm like, what the heck? The conference was meant to unite all women and give them an opportunity to voice their hopes for the future of the government. Instead, the conference became a battleground, with Schlafly declaring it to be federal financing of a foolish festival for frustrated feminists. Schlafly led a counter rally of 15,000 pro-family supporters who proudly announced that they had paid their own way rather than relying on congressional funding. The rally took place just 5 miles from the National Women's Conference and included pronouncements against abortion, lesbian rights, and the Equal Rights Amendment. The sudden visibility of Schlafly's counter-protest and her vocal followers led to the schism in political support for the women's rights movement that has continued to this day. There's this event in 1977, and it basically, the Equal Rights Amendment kind of fell apart. And basically, they were 4 states away. They got 1, 3 remaining, and she, along with her, the people in her group, pushed to stop it. And that is why the Equal Rights Amendment has never become the law of the land. so the end of this is immediately her followers in the states started to organize and demand that their states not ratify, or at least delay ratification until it could be studied. Basically, that movement began and it grew, and pretty soon the rate of ratifications dropped and then ground to a halt by 1975. At that point, they needed just 4 more states. They got only 1 more, Indiana, in 1977. So I really wanted to look at this event, the energy around it, because to me, especially knowing what came next, or, all of the stuff to follow with Trump and everything else, it to me, it seems like such a negative thing. But I kind of wanted to go into it a little bit, maybe what the fears that motivated this movement, what they were afraid of. And Phyllis Schlafly passed away in 2016. And I wondered if she may have a different point of view from the other side. And also maybe what she sees as her role in a broader view. Sometimes these negatives can ultimately be positive. So does she have some kind of information for us that would be helpful to understand where this is going and why she was part of this, and why basically she did this, and how she feels about it now. So thoughts, ladies.
You now can read the lovely comments.
Yeah.
You're really triggering everyone, Kim.
I've got, I think Marianne can, man, I've got a litany of nasty words for her. It's like, that's it, right?
Oh my goodness.
And again, we think of men as having been the problem, but really this is what caused it to halt and not go forward. It was,
I do feel that we've addressed this on several occasions about that we have to be uplifting of each other as women, especially because we already have the other side that we're fighting against. We need to really support one another. However, we do have, and we see it in other countries play out. We still are seeing it here with the Project 2025 is what, boom, came right on in. We have women who are very much aligned with the Christian nationalist belief system, and that they basically what Phyllis is showing me is they want to keep it at its the man opening the door, or the rules. They like that boxed in patriarchal system that they feel is the correct and only way. If you're wanting to know what she feels like now, of course she sees differently, but her belief system, it was, the base of it was her belief system. And I know a lot of people were like, was she paid off? Was she threatened? Was she doing this in fear? Well, a lot of it's fear-based anyway, right? But the belief system is fear-based. And she's saying actually she didn't believe in all of it. But it was the contingency. It was the people it's kind of where she got her votes, right? Was she a congresswoman, or was she was her who?
I don't think so. I think she was just an activist.
She was just an activist.
Yeah.
So
hearing her husband, was she married to somebody? Because that's what I'm getting.
Who is she attached to? Because
I feel he plays a role.
There's some, yeah.
Yeah. This article doesn't really, it mainly talks about the movement and just her part in it. It really didn't talk about her and her family
Rabble rousing.
kind of thing.
Well,
But clearly it was, entrenched in these very Christian ideas about, women
she
being in the home and the patriarchy and all of that stuff. So yeah.
she's showing me, what I only can pass on what she's showing me. She's ahead of something. She's I don't know if she was like the women's leader at her church or what she was, but she's definitely in a leadership position somewhere, whether it was at her church, in the women's group, whatever. And this was her platform. And
Well, she had a degree from from Washington University, and she studied law.
yeah.
So she was an educated woman, and
yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
But I find it interesting. I don't know what you guys are getting, but she didn't adhere to it all. But there's something about her role as a leader. I don't know if it was at her church or something that I don't know. That's interesting. I'll have to dig deeper into here, but that's.
I feel like she's the face of a bunch of people behind her.
Okay, maybe that
put her forward. And I feel like I keep hearing her husband a million times, so he's got to be somewhere involved.
His name was Fred Schlafly. I just looked it up, and it also said she was involved in a lot of campaigns. So she campaigned for a lot of people. So campaign, involved in campaigns, that definitely is politics, and it's definitely getting people into office. So,
okay, that's where this is. That's where the links are then.
When you were reading about her and you said that human rights or equal rights became political, and then that's where it rested in both parties, the whole room just lit up. Like that's it. Like it was making this political instead of human. It was deliberate to make it what do you call it, opposition.
Right.
It's deliberate. It's something about the politics. And then my other question is, just because they want that, they want to live in a patriarchal society and live by those rules, why does everyone else have to?
I was just having this conversation last night with Cassie and with Adam, and talking about how when they were talking, it was some other kind of Christian, I believe this and I believe this, and this is how our family is. And I thought, I don't care at all if people want to live that way, but why do they have to, like you just said, thrust it on the rest of us?
Yeah, exactly.
She just said to me, the breakdown of society, that there were some feelings that it would break down the family and break down society. So there was something about that they were trying to push or trying to make it. And I feel like there was part of her that did kind of think that it's a domino effect. If you take women out of the home and away from their children and, all of these things, and women are, she also is bringing up the armed forces for some reason, like women in the military or something like that. But it's like it would break everything down, break down the systems that we've been used to. Somehow all of this stuff would crumble the stuff that they felt was important.
Yeah, they felt.
Exactly. That they felt was important. Exactly.
And the movement never went away, and she keeps linking it to the Project 2025. The same type of mentality.
Right.
But you had a question, Kim. You questioned about how can you have this major contrast where they're okay with being in this position and taking away women's rights and fighting against us, our freedom and our equality. And a lot of people, I'm not saying Phyllis because I don't feel she totally was on board. I really feel like y'all are saying there was something political, there was something else attached to this.
Right.
But there's other people who really believe this. And you'll see it in other countries still, where it will be women who literally will initially drag another woman out of her house to be dragged down the street or whatever because of an indiscrepancy or whatever. Who knows what it was for, but it's happening now. And it will be women who are the first to drag you out. And it doesn't make sense. You think that women should protect women. What's happening?
Right.
But they are under the influence of the narrative.
And afraid to fight it because they know they'll be beat. So
Right. The fear.
it's a vicious cycle. And I just had a glimpse at her life, Phyllis's life, and a sentence or whatever thought came across as I was watching it. And equal rights has a different meaning if you're wealthy and white, right? And that's a blanket statement, obviously not everyone, but her lifestyle, she didn't have to feel what it was like to be a single woman trying to get a job to feed her kids. This was a woman of money and influence, and if her husband was in charge of the family, like, okay, but she still had all these luxuries and she didn't have to worry. It's a much different viewpoint than if you're someone who's got a kid or two and no husband and you want a job, but you can't get one, or you only can get one that pays, 10 cents an hour because you're a woman. Like, the view is very different.
Right.
And like Kim said, and putting Andrea and Kim's what you both were saying, it's like, well, it's okay if you want to live like that and be a slave to your home and your husband. But why are you trying to make it that everybody has to be? And then people who can't, who are
Exactly.
doing this alone and needing to
have a job to provide.
Have a credit card. Are they going to do that now? Are they going to start going after women can't have credit cards again and can't have property? Is that where they're going with this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How far are they going to take us?
Where's Phyllis if you plunk her into, New York City in the 70s and she has 2 kids and no husband and she can't get a job and she can't do all this stuff because she's a woman? I wonder.
Right. She can't have a credit card. She can't buy a property. She can't get a job. Yeah. She did. That wasn't. No. She was trying to hold on to some kind of political and Christian moral.
It goes along with a lot of the things that we see in MAGA today, this kind of refusal to accept the world as it is today. It's like they're trying to operate within an old world that doesn't exist anymore. And they're trying desperately to get back to it. But like you said, it was hard, it's only one part of that world that they're looking at. It's not everything else. And she's showing me too the 60s. She's talking about how for a lot of like religious conservatives, how scary the 1960s was. It was really frightening. The hippie movement and drugs and things that were happening that were just. She's like, I didn't recognize the country. It was very scary. It was almost like a traumatic. It was traumatic for people that were living in that very wholesome little bubble and kind of seeing what was going on in the streets with the civil rights movement, what was going on with, the war, and how they were trying to, argue against the war. And then you had these assassinations and you had all this.
Mhm.
And she's just saying it's like, it made it so much, that period of time made it so much harder to, she's like, it's almost like a crawling backwards, wanting to crawl backwards, because you just felt like the world was just, you didn't understand it anymore, is kind of how she's explaining it. It's like, I didn't understand it and I just wanted to go back. It didn't make sense to me. I couldn't make sense of it anymore. And I needed to go back. And I think she plugged into that feeling in a lot of people, that fear.
Yeah, it's not being able to embrace change or progress. Like the world. Okay, so let's say the way that she liked to live, Phyllis and her friends. If we go back hundreds or thousands of years before, it wasn't quite like that. Like sections of time, eras of people, they change how they live, right? So they're afraid of the future. And I don't know why, because they're not going to be here unless they come back in another body, right? So why do they assume society would fall apart if women have rights?
Right.
And even if it changes, what do you care? You're not going to be here. And if you don't understand it, that's okay. You had your time in the sun. Like, we all know, right, that the generations coming behind us are going to change the way things are done. And we can try to keep up and learn about it and just, find our place. But it's not going to be the way it was when we grew up. And that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And
I feel like we're not afraid of change.
No, it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's so beautiful to, the awakening, the blossoming of freedom and, just celebrating each other in our own, each individual uniqueness is so beautiful to me. And that our generation is coming up, and we've talked about this before, it's like a no-brainer to them. But we had to break away. We were part of the generation that had to break away from the old narratives to usher this in.
Mm-hmm.
And so we guys, the family here, we should all go, we're doing our job, because look at this, the generations coming in. We've been able to, with our frequency, help with the shift, right?
Love that. Love
Yeah.
With our frequency. Ooh, that felt good.
Yeah, I love that too. That's exactly right.
And they can control us, if you want to believe in the they, whatever they is, whoever. They can control us a lot easier if we're all in a cookie cutter lifestyle, right? You do this, you do this, you do this. You do not go outside of the box, because this is where we're controlling you. I don't want to live there. I want to live where there's new ideas and exciting people to talk to and different ways of thinking.
Right.
Who's afraid of progress? Not me.
Oh, I think it's wonderful.
It's so funny because I feel like she is, she's definitely, her views have definitely changed. I can tell she's not at all what she was like, but she's putting on that hat for us.
Right.
So we can understand where she was coming from. And she's saying that at that time, everything seemed messy. And she said, I just wanted to clean it up. I felt like it needed to be cleaned. It needed to be put, like you said, kind of put in a box. Women needed to be put back in a nice, pretty box, and they needed to dress nice. They needed to be with their husbands. It's like she wanted this neat way of things to be, then rather than this kind of the messiness. And you see that with a lot of people with democracy versus one leader, right? Democracy's messy. It takes time. It's annoying. People fight back and forth, and they get only a little bit of what they want. You know what I mean? So that is very messy. And she's explaining some people don't like that, because when you were talking, Debbie, she was saying she would have seen that as very like messy. That's what I put
Right.
it.
We don't, right?
House is clutter. It's like
Our-
too much happening at once.
Our frequencies, like Debbie
Yeah.
said, our frequencies are open to that.
Yes, exactly.
It's not fearful. And like I said, people in an ivory tower shouldn't make decisions for everyone. Like her thinking that everyone could just fit in this. Like we said, what about a woman who has no money and is being beat by her husband and wants to leave and find a job? Like so many scenarios we all know about. How could she ever be against that? Why does everything have to be blanketed in this stop the women's movement?
Right.
Like there's so many facets of it, but she was just blanketing it, like just stop equal rights. What are you even talking about? Unbelievable. And her vantage point, if you're a rich white woman, married to a powerful man and you have money, how can you ever decide what is right for everyone? Because you have no frame of reference.
Yeah, she had all the privileges in the world. She obviously was able to get an education, and she had that power behind her, power and privilege.
And it worked for her because of her. Maybe it worked for her because of her situation, but you take her and put her in everyone else's situation, she would start to see, oh, that doesn't work, does it?
Exactly.
No, it doesn't. But I feel the women in the conference, 1977, there's so much joy. That picture you showed with the women marching, I feel there's so much camaraderie in the 70s with the women coming out of the 60s, just like this, not all the women, obviously, not Phyllis.
Yeah.
But this joy of spirit of banding together and being able to talk about these things that, you know, the 50s and the 40s, the 30s, the 20s women weren't talking about, right? Their grandmothers, their mothers. There's a real joy. That's pretty awesome energy.
Yeah. Yes, when we unite, we really, really are extremely powerful.
And you see
and
a
that's
lot
why,
of that.
That's why they try to not let women unite.
Yeah, right. But you see a lot of that, I think, coming up when we did the week when we talked about the women of Gen Z. I think you see a lot of that spirit in them, that kind of risk over all that stuff, over, you know, worrying about LGBTQ. They just are like, everybody needs to live how they need to be who they are. They need to love who they love. It's like they're over that. It's done. They don't want to even talk about that. It's on to these other issues of saving the world and climate change and all of these other more existential threats. Then these very petty, you need to live like me. You need to stop being gay because I'm not gay. You know, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, and I'm taken by Sue Ellen's comment, if you want to click on that.
Yeah.
You know, Sue Ellen, I just want to say, you changed the world by your choice. I know it. She said, I lived in and worked in Washington, D.C. metro area at the time. I remember how angry and disappointed I was then. And I chose not to have children because I saw that was how men enslaved women. So your stance and your sacrifice changed the trajectory, right? So you came in and that was how you stood up and helped shift the energy towards equality for women and just globally. Your choice, I just wanted you to know that your choice helped shift us into equality by changing the frequency.
Absolutely. And
yeah.
And I think that's a good point that you just made with Sue Ellen, is that um, there are some choices that are being taken away, but we still have a lot of freedom in our choices, and make those choices that will make a difference. Do that, take advantage of the choices we do have. And like Sue Ellen, make the change you want to see, or do the thing you think is right, because it will change things.
It will, and it did, and it does. Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think in Japan, there's a huge movement right now of women choosing not to marry and not to have children. And Sue Ellen reminded me of that, because they don't want to be enslaved to men and having children. So it's the same thing, and they're doing it there now. You may have been one of the forerunners here, Sue Ellen, but now it's happening there as well.
Well, and just this week, Cassie was asked when she was going to change her name to her husband's last name. And she's like, I'm not doing that. She's like, that's an old fashioned thing, and I'm not doing that. And that is something you just don't see that much anymore. Either it's hyphenated, or women are just keeping their name, because why give up your identity and become him? It's like, what?
Exactly.
It makes no sense when you actually think about it. I mean, I changed mine because my other name was, nobody ever said it right. And I thought, at the first chance to change my name, I took it. But that was my choice.
That was
I had my own reasons.
And history shows that what happened to the slaves on the plantations, they were given the names of their owner.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So there's also a reason maybe you want to keep your own name. But again, it's choice.
It is choice, exactly.
There's a million reasons to change your name or to keep it.
Exactly.
Whatever feels right.
But it was interesting, because she never even thought about it. She was like, why would I do that? It's just a different way. Like I said, they're kind of over a lot of these other things that have hung us up for a long time. They just don't. It's just not on their radar. And
I just get this sense, like I said, the room lit up when you said this political stuff. So what I'm getting is human rights should not even be on either party's list. It should be dealt with, I don't know, by some kind of humanitarian, I don't know, what are the words I'm looking for? Humanitarian, what's the word?
Humanitarian.
Humanitarian people dealing with this. And it's not you don't vote for a political party because they want equal rights or not. It's off the table. Right. Equal rights goes over.
Nonpartisan. It should just be, it should be a human issue rather than
issues are dealt with a human group who then deal with the laws or whatever, right? It's got nothing to do with politics.
Yeah.
I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah, beware of Project 2025.
What is Project 2025? What is that?
It's the Christian. From what I'm sure one of our family can tell us better, but it's connected to I believe, because Phyllis is the one that brought it in. I believe it's connected to the Christian the
Christian Coalition or something.
The Christian nationalist thing, and they have a plan in place, and it's been in place, and you can see it playing out to take back over and it would connect the church with the church and state together, the government and the church together, and talk about women's rights. There would be no women's rights, right? That's their whole plan in place. And you have these women going around the country with this agenda. All you need to do is punch in Project 2025, and doesn't hands made until if it doesn't scare the shit out of you, I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Because
the Heritage Foundation is behind this. It says.
How weird. She's been saying the Heritage Foundation for like since we got on.
Are
kind
you
of.
serious?
Yeah, and I didn't
reading it now.
I didn't say anything because I just thought, oh, she's probably just, it's because it's conservative, whatever. How interesting.
Founded in 1973. It's the conservative movement to have an absolute authoritarian government.
Mm-hmm. And they want to restructure the government to reflect ultra-conservative.
Yeah.
And Sandra says Steve Bannon created the Project 25 and it's about taking over the world. Seriously.
Yeah, I'm about done with these people. I mean, I really am so tired of. We're not doing that. Yeah, we're not gonna do a Handmaid's Tale. They had their window in 2020 when Trump was still in charge. They lost. They're not going to win. I just refuse to. And I think that's part of it too, right? We cannot go into fear. We've got to stay in.
Yeah. So we have to stay in control and not in fear.
Exactly. This is not going to happen. We're not going to let this happen. We will do whatever it takes to not let this happen. We will band together. We can band together too.
To be honest,
out there too.
It sounds like a cult. It sounds like a lot of brainwashing to have people believe that this is the way to be. Like, what are you talking about?
You have
open your eyes, your ears.
I know, and they have a lot of money behind them, and they are going to do whatever it takes to get a Republican.
Let's say, what's their end game? So the end game is you have everybody behave the way you want, and women are subservient, and I'm guessing this has racial connotations to it as well. Mm-hmm. So certain groups of the population are kept down and certain are kept up, and then they just have full power. That's what they want. Full power. Does that sound like a fun place to live? And all those people who are listening to that rhetoric and believing in it, it's not going to be fun for you if they ever do it, which they're not going to. But these people don't realize what life will become, especially those women.
Yeah.
Like an MTG, if she thinks that they turn the world like this, where does she think her place will be?
Exactly. Women
won't be at the table.
Right. Well, it's just like when we talk about, in our own country, the billionaires wanting to be in charge and be pulling the strings of the government. And it's like, do you really want an oligarchy? Because when you surround someone like a Putin, he kills his own people. He killed a bunch of oligarchs. It's like, what are you? It's. I just think we just can't let it happen. That's all.
Exactly, and we're not.
Fear. We can't be afraid. We just need to stand up and know that we'll stand up.
It's a very outdated way of thinking.
It is, and it isn't a majority of Americans. It is a small, but it can be intimidating to see a few million people, but it is a small fraction. It is not. The stuff they want is not popular, and that's the problem, because they realize, okay, we're not winning elections anymore. We can't do this anymore. So what we're going to have to do is try to take over in some way like this and force people to do what we want them to do. But that's not going to work because it's 80-20. They're just this small fraction, and we just can't let it happen, And I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to go out and participate in things that will move forward what I would like to see in the world. I'm not afraid to do that. So they're not going to intimidate me by having some stupid thing that they have to organize 2 years in advance to get anyone to show up. That's fine. I'm not afraid of that, and we can't move into fear about this stuff.
And it's interesting by contrast. There's another kind of group of people in North America, the Amish or the Mennonites. We have Mennonites up here. I think you guys have Amish.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't like to use electronics, and they make their own bread and build their own barns, and they just live in this quiet space in the country. They grow vegetables, they sell them to people, and they're not trying to make everyone their way.
Exactly.
So there's a big difference, right? You can live old fashioned.
You do you.
And you do you.
Yeah.
And you have a nice place, and you have a nice farm, and if you're happy living that way. They're not trying to get everyone to live like that. So there's a big difference, and it's control and power, and that is not led from the heart. We know that.
That's
right.
Exactly what Rob said.
Mm-hmm.
He said, control and power.
Oh. Yeah.
Yes. It's about power and control, and especially control over women, and more specifically, I guess, access to them for mating purposes.
Yeah, because they want to.
That's screwed up and sad to say.
They want you to be stuck with those babies.
Right. Well, and I also think that this is, this is a billionaire class trying to, hoist things. And I do think a lot of this is about getting cheap labor, keeping people in poverty so they'll work for nothing, those kinds of things, because they're trying to strip away education. They're trying to do lots of things that make people just be in poverty. And that's part of it too, it's, but none of it is of the light, right? It's all very, very dark stuff. And
it's hidden behind religion.
What's that?
It's hidden behind religion. And it is the last thing that is loving and caring.
Exactly. So it can be pushed and forced to a point, but it ultimately will fall, because it isn't of the light, and things that are not in that place are doomed to fall. They really are. You can do it for a while, but then it does eventually just fall.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people today and the younger generations, boy, they're starting to see through everything real quickly. And the word's traveling through social media, or just, friend to friend.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, did you see this? That doesn't look right. You know what I mean? They're seeing through it, whereas maybe people weren't able to a long time ago. But and those generations that are beneath us and us, we all are light. We're far more light, light beings. So
and this stuff is really not popular with young people. Yeah, it's really not popular with them, because they're even more, they're even taking this idea of freedom to another level, even in the way that they're living now, living in alternative lifestyles, doing van life, living in tiny houses, deciding not to buy and just to be nomads. I mean, they really don't have those same restrictions and way of, they've had to think differently because of some of the circumstances they've been put in with school loans and all of these things. They can't own a home, or they can't have, they like you said, they're changing even their ideas about having a family. They've decided, we'll just get dogs, it's just like they're kind of taking ideas, to different places because they've had to. And, so they're just not going to be a controllable, I don't think, generation.
Can you imagine?
Are really free. Yeah.
No, this is the last gasp of a ancient way.
They're clawing onto it. They're just
They really are. They really are. They can feel the divine feminine rising up, and they don't. It's making them very, very uncomfortable, and it's making them cling to the past and to things they know and they've known for a long time. But you know what? Too bad. You got to get over it. It's going to happen. It's the way it is.
Yeah.
Get over it.
I love that. I love the mentality of our generation.
Well, they've been telling us to get over stuff for a long time. So it is like, just get over it.
Can you imagine the millions and millions of people between 15 and 22 right now going, yeah, that's the way we'd like to live, actually. We want to all be controlled, and men are in charge, and women can't get a job. And yeah, that's what we want.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to, exactly. It's, yeah. And like you said, it is the last gasp. And then, and then hopefully we'll have kind of some years of really moving things forward again. There's always these periods of backing up or being pulled back, but eventually it's going to move forward. We're going to move forward.
Yep. Yay. And we are moving forward.
Yeah.
We can't help but move forward.
Kim is correct. Thank you so much.
Karen.
Yay, we are moving into higher energies that don't support the lower energy of control. Exactly. These energies are leaving us, but they've been around for a long time, and I think it's scary to people, but get over it. It's okay. It's going to be okay. Well, thank you, everybody. This was a lively conversation.
It was. You really sparked everyone up tonight, Kim.
Fantastic. Yes.
Everybody up. Yep. So where are we?
Next time will be on my channel.
Okay.
Whenever we do the next show.
So we'll be on. Yeah, October is going to be a little weird because we've got the retreat at the end of the month, and we're very excited about that. But I think all of our schedules are going to be kind of up and down a little bit. But we'll try to fit in these ladies' nights because I think they're very important, and they always make me feel better.
Me too. Fantastic one tonight, Kim.
Yeah, it really was. It really wanted me to get out there and march on the streets right now.
Let me get out here. One woman march on the street.
And it's just, it's actually kind of funny. Like, I had a really good laugh just thinking about, like, who would be like, yeah, let's live like North Korea.
Right? Exactly. Well, and that's the other thing is that if you really want to do it and you really want to try it, there are countries like that. Go try it out. See what it's like. Maybe you'll love it.
You do you.
Trump and his friends and the heritage community or foundation, whatever, they can all go set up shop in North Korea.
Exactly. All right. On that constructive suggestion, we'll see everybody later. Have a good night, everybody. Have a good week. Thanks, ladies.
Bye. Thank you
all. Bye.